Well. It is Friday. Bring it in with me, Jarod Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic, my friend. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good, doing better than a lot of these NBA guys who find themselves the face of the NBA's anti-vax movement, which, we'll get to that throughout the show. I wanted to lead off, Coach, with Henry's latest post that went out this morning. First thing just being everyone knows the wonderful work that we try to do here at TrueHoop. Of course, in order for that work to continue on, we need subscribers. So all of you loyal subscribers and people who tune in to bring it in and all the stuff we do, send it along to your friends and people you think just like basketball and just like smart coverage and smart analysis about just about anything, but mainly the NBA. It always ties back to the NBA. So definitely do that. Pass it along. Let them know. Sign up. Become a member of the TrueHoop community. So one thing that caught me about Henry's piece, and of course it's always about, all this starts from our love of basketball, right? We love the NBA. And as people who love the NBA, we want this game and this league to go on forever and just continue to last. And as we continue to move on and the work we do here, we realize that there are nefarious characters that infiltrate this league, right? I mean, the NBA is a microcosm of the larger society in which it inhabits. There are lots of nefarious characters in the big world, right? So why would the NBA be any different? And Henry in his wonderful work was talking about a novel he was reading about trees, and the writer said something I thought was interesting, and it brings us to my conversation about the macro and then the micro. And the author says the world is failing precisely because no novel can make the contest for the world seem as compelling as the struggles between a few lost people. People are dying in a storytelling crisis, Henry then comments after that. And I thought that as it relates to COVID and what's happening in the NBA, that's so apropos, Coach. Like, it's a storytelling situation that we're having, a problem that we're having right now. Nothing seems to work, right? As the world is dying. No one wants to hear that. But I want to hear, oh, my cousin's friend's brother, XYZ, right? It's this weird way in which anecdotal somehow trumps the larger community. And as it relates to the NBA, this is sort of where we are right now this week. Everyone knows all the media day stuff's happened. I was at Brooklyn Nets media day. We'll talk about Kyrie in a little bit. Coach, I am, and you are as well. There's nobody more pro player than me. I love player empowerment. Do your thing. Love it. You guys earned it and deserve it because you are the league. But this might be one of those unintended consequences of player empowerment, in the sense that when you begin to think of yourself only solely as a brand and a company and an individual, you start forgetting about the we in the community. And as a coach, I know that's a problem for you, right? And where we are right now is we have some actors in the NBA who are only focusing on themselves and their brand, right? Using words like personal decision and not thinking about the greater good and the larger good. And I think that's just one jumping off point to start as we talk about what's going on in the NBA right now with a few high profile guys being unvaccinated.
I think it was Martin Luther King who, I'm not going to quote him accurately, but he basically acknowledged even back in the day that in any crisis and controversy, there's an element of people that are going to try to take advantage of it for personal gain. One of the tragedies of what we're talking about here, Jarod, is I don't think that's happening here. Like, we know, for example, at places like Fox and Breitbart, all these other crazy places, they were just selling supplements. If you look at the number one advertiser on Fox programming at night after Fox itself, in other words, they're promoting their TV shows, which I don't watch any of them, or football, whatever they have. That was number one in ad sales. Number two were supplements. And then number six were a supplement company. They're selling anti-science on the air so they can sell you products. They're gaining. They're also building their community because they're galvanizing that community. Okay, that is not the case. I don't believe with Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie and those guys. I think they're just uninformed and too proud to allow someone of, I wouldn't say a greater intellect, but a more honed intellect on this subject. The way we would, for example, and we've had to do this, unfortunately, more than once in my life, and my wife's life, when we've had cells that were cancerous, we have gone to oncologists and they informed us. And I'm lucky to have a brother that not only is a radiologist, but one of the world's smartest humans, where he can become an expert in pretty much anything because everything he reads goes right into his brain and he understands it all. So as soon as I got diagnosed with salivary gland cancer, I think it was 2007, Mike became an expert in that and then walked me through all the things I have to do to make sure it's not in my lungs or my brain, or these are all places it might have gone to. That was a scary few weeks. But I didn't act like, well, I know what I'm just going to, drink more tea or whatever. I found someone that knows way more than me, who got educated, and we saw all sorts of people. That is what needs to happen here, right? We need these guys have to be willing. When they say doing my research forever, what do you mean by that? Right? We know what Rudy Giuliani means. There was a deposition this week where he basically admitted he got his information from Facebook, literally. Like this came out in depositions on the lawsuit with Dominion. He didn't do any research at all. He was getting stuff from the Facebook, as he said. So let's sit down with some really, really intelligent, experienced people that they can choose themselves. Let them choose it. Here's 25 experts we're giving to you, Andrew and Bradley, whatever. Pick the one you most think you could possibly trust, or 6 or 7 of them, and let's get this done. Let's get to 100%. Portugal is 100%. A nation is at 100% of 12 and up. How can we not get a league of 450 guys? Come on.
And you said something interesting there, Coach, about not saying of greater intellect. I'm going to push back. No, yes, of greater intellect. One of the things that NBA players love to do to people like us in the media is when we ask basketball questions that rub them the wrong way, retort back, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Because I play in the NBA and I've done all this and I have all this level of knowledge. And I don't disagree when they do that. I don't know what it's like playing in the NBA. Of course you have more basketball knowledge than me. That's why I'm asking you the question, right? Because you are the player. You are the expert. So I'm going to you. In the same token, because you then push that back on someone like me or a media member, how do you have the temerity to tell someone who's dedicated their life to science and research that they don't know what they're talking about? It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, how does that work, right? And that's the pushback I often have with these guys. It's, look, and I think it's also multi-layered in the sense that with Andrew and Kyrie and Bradley, there's a class issue that comes into play here, right? When you are a high-level NBA player and you make well over $100 million in your career and you're making over 30 million, you can make decisions like this, right? Like, look, honestly, if Kyrie and Andrew sit out 41 games and miss those game checks, it's not going to materially impact their life in any way. They'll be fine. Like, so it isn't like the person who works at United who needs her $70,000 a year job to pay her mortgage. They're going to be straight. So that's not going to be the thing that pushes them. As I said on Tuesday, it's going to be about the community and your teammates, right? Behind the scenes, the peer pressure from KD for Kyrie and from Steph and Draymond for Andrew, right? And I get the whole posturing the guys have to do in the media this week, right? When they go on and we ask them about it, it's a personal decision, which of course, if you notice, every player says it's a personal decision, which leads me to believe one thing. The NBPA sent them all talking points with their media people saying, anytime you're asked about this, lead with personal decision, right? That's the buzzword, personal decision. But you and I know, but it's not personal, right? The personal is political and it's also community, right? Because that's how it's being taken. You've got the right wing using it as a punching bag, right? People like Ted Cruz, who don't stand for anything decent, using these guys as avatars now. 1, 2, it is about community, right? In the sense that it's not about you, my friend. It's about the arena worker and the trainer and all these people who have to work up close with you, who have families they have to go back to, right? If you come in contact, that's something they have to be prepared about. It's about making sure that everyone in your orbit, not just your loved ones and people you care about, anyone you come into orbit with, right? If you're someone who decides, I'm not taking the vax, and you stay inside and live a quarantine life, okay, I don't care. Knock yourself out. But if you choose to engage among everybody and just live life like how we all do, well then, no, my friend, like you have to follow rules, right? In society, we stop at red lights because that's what we do, right? We've all agreed. This is how we function. We wear seatbelts. This is how we function as a society. So if you want to join us and live here, these are the rules that we have to follow.
So Bradley Beal would say, you can get COVID if you've had the vaccination. I've already had it and recovered from it, so I definitely have antibodies. He's right on that. He is arguing that the fact that I can still get it whether I'm vaccinated or not means it's not a valuable shot to take. It's just such a silly argument. I can wear a raincoat or have an umbrella and I still might get wet.
Yes.
But if I walk through a storm
with nothing,
with the umbrella, and you go through a storm and I've got a raincoat and umbrella and you don't, I'm going to be wet. You're going to be soaked. And the difference is, in this case, soaking might mean hospitalization or death.
Correct.
And the numbers, if we were at 30,000 dead since January of 2020, none of us would be worried about any of this.
Right.
We wouldn't be a topic. But we've lost 60,000 Floridians just in one state. There's 50 states, and it's going to get bad in the winter. I think up in your area, we're going to probably start coming out of it now as people can start opening up. We know ventilation is so important. It's a stunning consequence to all that's happened. And honestly, my feeling now is, well, I like how you put it. I'm going to add something to it. They don't have to play. Well, Beal is fine because Washington, D.C., as of now anyway, hasn't made a rule. Maybe that'll change. I got to believe at some point, Kevin Durant's going to say to Kyrie, like, yo, what are you doing? Because as of November 1, December 1, January 1, pick the date. Like, dude, I'm asking them to trade your ass. We're going to trade you to a city that allow you to play. And we're going to get someone that plays all of our games, who wants to win a championship and isn't afraid of a needle. So either decide to get vaccinated, here's your deadline, or I'm off you. I think that's coming.
Yeah. I think, and Vinny Goodwill from Yahoo Sports, in an article he put out this week, reported that it is his belief that behind the scenes, he heard from sources that they expect Kyrie to, in fact, get vaccinated, mainly because of his friendship with Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant appealing to him, again, behind closed doors. And I want to make something clear, Coach. I understand, and it's sort of like an agreement among players. You don't go into the media and talk about a guy's money, about their family, about things that are right. So I'm cool with all the players saying it's so-and-so's personal decision. Fine. But behind the scenes, you guys know what you got to do. And you tell them whatever that is that needs to happen. And you make sure that everybody is all ships flowing in the same direction. I want to also talk about Kareem's Abdul-Jabbar statement on this. His Substack letters have been great. If you guys aren't signed up to Kareem's Substack, definitely do that. You know how I feel about him as a player. Coach does as well. Again, a resume that easily can be like, this is the greatest player of all time, right? But even better human being than probably he was a player, which is incredible.
Amazing man.
And Kareem is basically like, he's coming out and he's being like direct and harsh on these guys, saying that you are perpetuating the dumb jock syndrome by not getting the vaccine. And he's 100% correct. This idea about doing research, and I broke this down on another podcast a couple of weeks ago. Listen, everyone here has been to school and taking science. The steps involved in the scientific method and experiment are laborious and labor intensive. Whenever anybody says they're doing research, they're not doing that, okay? They're doing nothing remotely close to that. They're diving into YouTube University and Facebook, and this is where they're getting the information. And I'm sorry, those are not sources that equate to research. It's anecdotal, right? What you're ultimately doing is looking for people that agree with your point of view. And that is not what objective research does. Objective research has an hypothesis that you try to figure out, is it right or wrong? And you report the data as it comes, because you don't care whether you're right or wrong. Is this hypothesis true? Yes or no, right? And that's the idea. And so no one who says they're doing research does anything remotely close to that. But again, Kareem is really, really out there letting guys know that, listen, again, if you are so principled in what you believe, okay, I'm okay with people having principles. Well, then go all the way with it, right? Andrew Wiggins, and if you saw Andrew Wiggins' press conference this week, he was defiant in his felt like his back was up against the wall, and it's quite unfortunate to watch. And my thing is okay, it's none of our business, whatever. I don't agree with that because we're asking you basketball questions. But if you're so steadfast in your conviction, then don't play. Right? Then just literally be like, I don't need this. If it means that much to you, you can back all the way out and not play. Right? That's what everyone else does in the world when they're in jobs or situations that don't align with their values. If it's that destructive to them, they quit that company and they go somewhere else. You don't have to play in the NBA, Andrew. You can go play basketball somewhere else, or you can not play at all, right? I look at someone like Colin Kaepernick, someone like Maya Moore, right? People whose convictions, they were like, no, I'm stepping away. I'm doing this. All right. Well, if it really means that much to you, stand by the convictions. And that's sort of where I run into conflict with some of these guys.
Oh, there's a lot to unpack here, Jarod. So first of all, when we're talking about public health, right? Not private. When we talking about, I think you were right in what you said regarding they don't want to step on each other's, inside each other's lives and bodies as it relates to medical, which is understandable. We all want some privacy. But if we were talking about moving the ball, they would be within their rights to say something, wouldn't they? Because it's your game. Hey, do what you want to do, but it's affecting me. When you refuse to pass the ball, or in the case of Ben Simmons, when you refuse to shoot the ball and afraid to get fouled, it's affecting we, not just you. So then they speak up. Well, this is the same thing. And it goes to another point. I've made this before, probably on our show. Someone asked me once, like, what made me a good coach back when I was coaching 5-on-5, not individuals. And it's probably a long answer because it's a complex game. But one of my best things is I just have no pride. I don't know when I lost it. I really don't know. I don't remember ever thinking, you know what, I should just stop being prideful. I just have never been when it came to coaching my team. If I was wrong, I just pivot so fucking fast. I want to be right. And so sticking with what isn't working clearly is just stupid. Now, that doesn't mean that there were times when I was coaching, for example, or parenting, and I just said, you know what, I'm failing this, but I know what's going to happen. I just got to stay the course on this particular thing, and I think it'll come around. For example, like in player development, if guy's missing threes and he's 14, you don't just stop working his three-point shot. All right, he's going to figure it out. You got to let him fail first. That's different. It bothered me so much seeing Andrew, who I've always been a fan of. I loved his father, Mitchell Wiggins, went to Florida State. I went to Florida. I still love Mitchell Wiggins. Because I just saw so much of that pride, and it made no sense. I really felt badly for him. Sounds like you did too. Like, dude, this is not being manly. This is not being intelligent. This is sticking with something that makes no sense. And again, if he had a good answer, I have a friend, I've told you before, who has a real phobia for needles. If I'm not going to say why, I've learned why. I get it. It's something that happened when he was young, and it's super scary. Unfortunately, he got COVID and has been near death for a while. I think he's going to recover. He's my age, but it's not going great. And he's never going to be the 56-year-old he was before, which was always like a really fit, very athletic dude his whole life. And he's got kids and a wife of 30 years probably. And it's going to fuck him up forever. Luckily, they all got vaccinated. It's tragic that he can't, if you could communicate even to a therapist or a doctor, here's my concern, then you can at least walk him through where you're wrong. If he's not doing that, and maybe he is, but I suspect he's not. I'm glad you said Kyrie. I didn't read that article because I do agree with that. My gut sense was he's going to take the vaccine.
I'm a firm believer in ultimately it's going to, we always talk about it's the peer pressure, right? It's not going to be this other stuff. It's going to be the team, right? This connectivity from your brothers. It's like, look, man, we need this to happen and we need you to win, right? You're going to have to appeal to that part of it, right? And if that's going to be the turning decision. The other thing I'll say is that for the rest of the league who's not vaccinated, and Woj put out a tweet last night saying that the league is now, I believe, up to 95% vaccination. I want to be clear about something. When they say vaccination, they mean at least one shot. That's not saying fully vaxxed. That's one shot. And that's not necessarily saying J&J. It could be one of Moderna, one of Pfizer. We don't know because they're not clear about what's what. And we can argue about whether they need to say who is what or whatever. So it's about 40 players. And from what I understand, there are 1, 2, 3 teams that we know of for sure that are fully vaccinated. The Knicks, the Lakers, and the Clippers that are 100% vaccinated. Excuse me, not fully vaccinated because the whole second shot deal. But at least every player has had one shot. So 100% from those 3 teams. So it's about 40 guys from 27 remaining teams. All right. And again, not every city has the regulations that Manhattan and
almost no city does.
Right. It's just those two, Manhattan and San Francisco. So it'll be interesting because the league is going to make the requirements very stringent for those who are not vaccinated. They're going to have to sit in separate parts of the arena, have to wear masks on the bench. They're going to have to be almost under lock and key when they go to visiting cities and not being allowed to go out. And I think all of those things are going to start putting the squeeze on them. They're going to have to go on off days when everybody else is doing their thing. No, you got to come to the facility, get tested twice. Like, I think all of that is going to really start to squeeze those other guys and be like, look, I just want to do my thing. And if that's what it takes, fine by me.
You remember when you'll remember the name of the person who was murdered in Milwaukee, Kenosha.
Jacob Blake.
So Jacob Blake, right, of course. And the Bucks didn't come out of the tunnel. I believe they're playing the Magic in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And some really intelligent people and teammates, George Hill and Giannis, whatever, they came to, I think even Obama, Obama called LeBron, those guys, but I know they called the state attorney general. And there was, okay, how do we best utilize this moment? We're at a point now, Jarod, where we're saying to guys, you're sacrificing many millions of dollars and opportunities to make more money down the road if you play great, whatever, as well as standing up for your teammates and all that, over a shot that my 80-plus-year-old parents have 3 each. Like, what are we doing here? What hill are you dying on for this? And David Aldridge in his article mentioned when he wrote about Bradley Beal, this has affected Black communities even more than a typical virus has anyway, for reasons we can spend a whole nother podcast on, many podcasts on. So it's this is why David was upset. He's like, there's a chance really to be a hero. And I think that's another way to approach people like Andrew, all the things you said. And also just if every one of you guys can recognize that we're talking about something so minor. And, call me silly, but to me, you can sometimes define how you're doing based on who's with you. Well, around the country, those that are championing not being vaccinated are people I would never want to be friendly with.
Without question.
Or take any advice from.
Without question.
That might be something to visit too,
As Michael Lee of the Washington Post tweeted out yesterday, if all of a sudden people who never rocked with me started rocking with me after I said something, I have to go revisit what I said.
I saw that.
Right? I mean, it's just like, I'm out on that. And Devin just dropped in from Steiny Mo, Mark Stein's Substack. These are the 8 teams that have rosters that are fully vaccinated: the Hornets, Pistons, Rockets, Knicks, Blazers, Spurs, Jazz, and Lakers. Again, the only team that has to worry about that in terms of in-home market are the Knicks. But the rest, kudos to them for everybody. Because guess what now? That's something that as a team, they're going to have, as you know, coach, in a season, a million things are going to come up because of just that's the nature of basketball. One thing they ain't got to worry about this, right? Okay, cool. We know what we're doing. Everybody's vaccinated. We're going to move on and move on down the road. The one thing I will say before we go and move on to some on-court stuff is to the point you mentioned and what David Aldridge said in his piece. These men are leaders and role models, whether they want to be or not. And again, we could get into whether athletes should or shouldn't be. I don't think they should, but that's not their fault. That's a crisis of celebrity we have in this country, right? That's the failure in the matrix, right? We somehow said, oh, if celebrity X does something, that's what you should do. Never mind like actual people who are good at whatever that thing is. So that's not their fault, but that's the life they live, right? When they do things like say, well, as we know about antibodies, and I already got it twice, and I'm fine, and I'm 20-something years old, and I'm super healthy, and I'm fit. It's like, okay, all those things may be true, but the millions of people who follow you are probably not all in their 20s, super fit, and actually they're not. We know that for a fact,
right? And
don't have access to the best healthcare in the world because they work for the NBA. They're just regular run-of-the-mill people whom, when they see you say, oh, I'm not going to do it, and they decide not to do it, the consequences for them could be dire. Right. And for you, maybe not as much, because regardless of whether you believe in the shot or not, you're going to get rushed to the hospital, get the best care available, whatever, because of your status in life.
Right.
This ain't the same for all the people who follow you. Right. And so that's my issue where I'm like, look, if we're going to stand up and say we want to be leaders in the community, it ain't pick and choose leadership. Right. Like, especially on something like this, which is a public health issue. And Kareem said it. If you're standing for Black Lives Matter and everything else, how are you not also standing for this, which, as we know, as you mentioned, Coach, adversely affects the Black and minority communities?
Yeah, I want to draw about that too, Black Lives Matter and the union. Jarod, as a parent, when you have young kids, one thing you tell them when you go to Disney World or a zoo or a mall with a lot of people, if somehow we get disconnected, which is with twins, 50-50 chance going to happen when they get old enough to run around, whatever, find a mom. I don't know if Judy's ever said that to her kids. That's what we were taught to tell our kids, find a mom. And it made total sense. And the reason why, as speaking as a dad, is when you have children, the transaction isn't, okay, I now have a life outside of my own that I need to be accountable for. And it stops at their lives and my spouse, if I have one. No, I ran many Little League practices, many AAU basketball and whatever, travel baseball. And you don't just get in your car and leave an 11-year-old whose parents aren't there yet. No, you wait until, and you text or you call, and you're frustrated because I just ran the practice. I'd like to go home, but I'm not leaving Johnny or Sarah. No, until their parents are there, I'm there. That's part of the deal. So I understand your point about they didn't ask for this when they became NBA players, right? Well, welcome to the club. We all have to do things we didn't ask for. And especially when it comes with the bonus of the paycheck for playing basketball and all of that. And I'm all for the players deserving all of it. You know how I stand on them, same as you. But no, this is part of it, brother. This is part of what we're all connected. You know, you mentioned Henry's piece where the roots seek each other out and exchange information. Did you ever see the Avatar? Did you ever see the movie Avatar? Hey, that's exactly what Avatar was all about. Nature, in a sense, is God. It's all connected. And it's the same thing. We're all brothers and sisters, all of us. If we're all enjoined, whether it's the same basketball team, the same city, at the red light. If I decide, fuck it, I'm just going to not observe this red light. I'm not just putting my life at risk. I'm putting not just the person I hit at risk, but their family. Imagine knocking out a mom and a dad who have 2 4-year-olds at home. And now they're not parents. No, you've affected the greater community because of your selfishness. It's the same thing here. And this is where I feel like the Beals and the Wiggins and the Kyries and I don't know about Jonathan Isaac. It's hard to reach the Jesus ones.
Yeah, very
I love him, but I love him anymore.
Very hard to reach
a little freaky. Or Moses, whatever turns you on. All that stuff's kind of scary to me. But the other ones I think who aren't doing it for religious purposes. Did you hear what Shaq said about the Kyrie thing?
I did.
Let's talk about that in a sec. What were your thoughts on that?
So Shaq, I believe, went on it was the big podcast, his podcast, and said, you know, that if Kyrie wasn't doing this, I'd trade him, right? Like he wants him out of there. And look, there is, when we're talking about winning championships, and you know this in the NBA, listen, man, the idea that you have this long window and no, man, this may be it. This year with this collection may be it. Why are we adding things to the pot that are going to cause us trouble when you don't have to, right? And I think that's the part that's causing issues. And Kyrie at Media Day says, you know, last thing I want to do is be a distraction. I'm like, bro, if the last thing you wanted was to be a distraction, this ain't it.
Right, you chose poorly.
Right. This ain't the way to not be a distraction. Because here's the thing. You're Kyrie. You're likely going to do something else during the season that's going to be just, why are we having this problem? Let's just cut this out and just move on, right? And so I think, look, that's the thing about winning a championship. It's about the we, right? You have to put aside all the other whatever, if that is your goal. And if you can't, again, as I said about Wiggins and whatever, then you say, you know what? I have to either step away from this team or step away from basketball, period. If you cannot move in the right direction, because all ships have to be sailing in the same direction for us to have a chance of winning. You start going off the rails, we got problems.
And your chance of being traded are more challenging because every team you might go to, even if they don't have vaccinated rules like Golden State does, for example, with Andrew Wiggins, the team is realizing this guy just didn't give a fuck. It's not because he thinks the vaccine tracks you, whatever.
Right.
He's just being prideful and not really caring about his teammates. And why are we bringing that guy in at $30 million plus?
Mm-hmm.
Even if Kyrie, is good enough to earn that money. Andrew's not. He's overpaid. But you got to ask yourself about Kyrie. All the other history he has, now this too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think I do. I of all the guys, I think Beal and Kyrie both will take it.
Yeah, I think so as well. Just if nothing else, just to be like, I don't want to keep answering questions about this. all
maybe, right.
All right, let's move on to something happening on the court. The NBA has finally, to many fans' delight, come out and said, we are making some officiating changes. The non-basketball moves that certain players use to draw fouls are going to be taken and legislated out of the game. And Judy's got the tweet up right here on video. And we're seeing some of the league's most egregious take advantage of those rules. Number one being Luka Doncic, who, the idea of when you're taking a shot, leaning into the other player, which that's not a basketball move. When you play basketball, you don't lean into someone on a shot. Like, that's not right. If you made the up fake and the guy's gone, you go straight up into your jump shot. You don't drive into them, or the sideways dive into them that Steph Curry does here on this play. And Trae Young, one of the league's habitual line steppers as it comes to that. He's also on here. And of course, James Harden's another one who people have mentioned. I will say the thing about Harden, and our good friend Marcus Elliott, head of P3, has talked about this. James Harden's number one in the NBA at the ability to decelerate, right? We know acceleration is a skill. Well, deceleration is also a skill, right? The ability to stop your massive frame from moving forward, right? At the blink of an eye. Now, that is not one I think that they're going to necessarily call fouls on, because that's just part of basketball, right? But the other ones where it's a clear non-basketball play where you're literally stopping in front of someone or running directly into them to cause the foul, the league is going to take that out. And I think that's probably a good thing. How do you feel about it, Coach?
So the only thing of all the rule changes, the only thing I have not liked so far is jumping into the player when the player has jumped and is in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you might be old enough to remember Rick Barry as an announcer.
Mm-hmm.
I know you know as a player, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he used to call it the Paratroopers Club. Well, I joined the Paratroopers Club. And honestly, it's a really good rule to punish defensive players who jump when they shouldn't be jumping. So we don't like our players jumping. And we work hard and have them not jump. And there's certain times where obviously you do. So I like the fact that offensive players punished you when you jumped and you shouldn't have by drawing a foul. Other than that, I think the rules are great. Jumping sideways into a guy who's just running, to me, should never have been called a foul. The way you can use your other arm to draw a foul, that seemed unfair. But in addition to those things, which I think will make the game a little bit cleaner,
mm-hmm.
you're not reviewing the last 2 minutes out of bounds stuff unless
mm-hmm.
the coach challenges it.
Mm-hmm.
And are you watching the Mets documentary? Have you watched the 30 for 30?
Oh, Once Upon a Time in Queens?
Yeah.
Of course. I already saw it. I lived it in a way.
Right. I did too, but I wasn't in New York. I was in college, so it's not like baseball really mattered that much to me living in Florida. But I hated the Red Sox, so I wanted the Mets to win that last year. And I grew up with a guy whose dad pitched for the Mets in the 60s and 70s, and he was a coach there. So we rooted for the Yankees and the Mets, actually. Probably that is unique, but my whole family's from New York, basically. So we rooted for both. I'm watching it, and I will tell you, of course, it's just a documentary, it's just highlights, but they did. Some of these plays, I wasn't sure if the guy was really safe or out. They didn't check. They didn't second guess it. Yeah. It is what it is. By the way, what an amazing documentary. And
excellent. I
did not appreciate how brilliant Keith Hernandez was, the Larry Bird of baseball.
Oh, he's really good.
That dude made plays unbelievable. Anyway, this is a basketball podcast. Henry says this all the time. We used to argue about it, but I think he's right. We need to appeal the game we need to make it more appealing. And all these stoppages in action don't help, especially thanks to social media and the fact that you cannot get anyone younger than 50 or my age of 56. If I'm a little bit bored with a show, I'm checking my phone. We have to make a rule in my household when my kids are home. Everyone put the phones away. We're just going to suck it up for 2 hours, good or bad. And so you can't do that in the NBA and have all these check the play. I hate it. So I'm happy. I'm very happy. The not punishing jumpers on defense, I didn't love, but it's not the worst thing in the world. That's for sure. And I still think we're going to coach guys to not jump so much.
And I think
it'll make for a better product.
I think your point about the jumping is correct, right? So if we're playing ball, right, and like you up fake me, and I jump and I bite on the up fake, but it's just a normal straight up jump, and you go up into your shot, and I still hit you, that I think is still a foul.
It is a foul.
It's the other one. It's where because now the guys are so athletic. If I bit on the fake, but I contort my body to get away from you, and you still try to lean into on the shot, that's the one where they're like, well, come on, bro. He's avoiding you, and you're trying to get into him.
I'm glad you clarified it. I still wish they called it a foul because I don't want these guys jumping. However, for the sameness, I guess, factor, everything's kind of more similar. It's fine. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to be yelling and screaming, oh, it's a terrible decision. No, I think it's a good move for the game. Yeah, to me, I'm happy with that, and I want more people to watch the game that we love.
I agree. And well, one of the things we're going to have to talk about just in general throughout the course of the season, look, the way that you make basketball, I think, more relevant, and the NBA, for whatever reason, has gone away from it. We'll talk more about the game, right? We talk about everything else so much. It's like the game matters, right? The intricacies of the game. Let's do X's and O's. Let's do, right? Like, why are they doing this side out of bounds play versus that one? Why are they running the stagger this way instead of this way, right? Like, I think people would actually find that interesting. So talk about the game.
I'm so mad I didn't matter right there. There's a guy that does college football, maybe he does pro too, I don't know, breakdowns. I don't really pay attention much, but I've got a couple of young men that I've helped over the years because my brother was like their second dad, are two of the best offensive tackles in the country. One's just got ranked number 17th in the draft for next year as a junior. The other, I think, is going to be a first-round pick too. So it'd be pretty cool that his starting power forward and center on my brother's 8th grade AU team are both going to be NFL first-round picks, and which was always the plan. They played basketball to make them better at football. So because of that, I'm watching more college football than ever before because I care about Richard and Nick, and for Ohio State and Florida. And so I found this guy. I don't know what he looks like. I would listen to him announce a football game every day of the week. He's super geeky with how he's describing packages and play sets, and it flows off his tongue to suggest to me he's coached or played at a very high level. It's like listening to me about basketball if I really wanted to geek out on it. And it makes me smarter because I can see on video what he's talking about, and he also diagrams. But his language is so colorful. We need people like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think only Jeff Van Gundy dumbs it down 1,000%. 1,000%. And Mark Jackson does too. Like, those guys clearly know the game at a very, very high level, but that's not the package that we get.
No.
And I think that's unfortunate. The other thing I think is interesting is when we talk about this, this goes back to something we've always endeavored at TrueHoop, is we want to tell stories that are about human beings. We want to connect to that spirit that we all have. It's why I can be riveted by events that happened in 1986 in New York when I was a junior in college. But watching that ALCS against the Houston Astros for the Mets, and now, of course, the World Series against the
Red Sox.
I know the people now. Like, I barely knew of them before, other than Doc Gooden. Doc Gooden's from here. My son practiced 3 days a week as AAU, 5 minutes away from where Doc's projects were when he grew up. Doc's had a home. I still think Doc lives down here. He used to have a really big house. I'm not sure he still does. That's a tragic story. My goodness.
I mean, that was so Doc and Magic Johnson were my two first athletes that I fell in love with.
Really?
Doc's 85 season, still to this day, might be the greatest single pitching season ever, like in the history of baseball.
But even in 86, if you paid attention, again, we're talking baseball here, but I happen to love baseball. Like, in some of those games in the playoffs, he was pitching into the 10th inning.
10th inning, give up one run, and no. Well, you can argue, and this is a conversation for a different day. That is why, but besides the drugs, why he had all the arm trouble in his career.
Sure.
I'm like, Stottlemyre, I'm like, he's throwing 200 pitches in a game. What are you doing? Like, I know, but it's like everything else, right? We didn't know then what we know now about probably not a good idea to contort your arm that way 200 times every 4 days.
Listen, I knew about Doc because, again, he's from here. I could drive those projects in 20 minutes right now. He won, I think, the Little League World Series for Belmont Heights when he was 13 years old, which, if you can imagine, made a big splash down here. So he was always like the guy. And wow, and unfortunately now seeing all that's happened to him. The stuff on Darryl Strawberry was unbelievable.
Oh,
when he said, I just wasn't a good man, talking about punching his wife. That was so, I mean, I was so proud of him for like, stop. We all know that. But the fact that you said it means so much, probably to her too. But that kind of storytelling in real time would make, because all these athletes have amazing stories. They're all, I mean, well, again, I was talking about Keith Hernandez, but these guys, they're the best of the best of the best. They were bringing guys off the bench for the Mets hitting home runs. Like, that's not an accident. Those are super, super talented players. We bring in guys. I mean, what Cameron Payne did last year.
Oh, yeah. He was incredible.
He was a lottery pick. It didn't work out. He was fucking fantastic for the Phoenix Suns. And my wife has an aunt who lives in Portland, and she lives and dies with the Trailblazers. She doesn't email me stuff. She mails me articles from the paper there that I can catch online, but she'll cut them out and send them to me. And she thinks all these players are the greatest things in the world. And I think it's sweet and innocent, and it's great. We need that. We need to connect to our fan base that way. And this goes back to the whole Wiggins thing. That's not helping.
No.
When you're taking this, when you're being obstinate and belligerent, you're not helping the process of us trying to get more people to fall in love with our game.
Not at all. Let's do our latest as the world turns as it relates to Ben Simmons. That soap opera in Philly. Look, Joel Embiid had comments this week where he basically came out, and because the reporting had been coming out that Ben didn't say, but if you read between the lines, it either came from Ben or Ben's camp that playing with Embiid was not good for his particular game in his career. And Keith Pompey, the excellent Sixers beat writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer, asked Joel about that during training camp, and Joel went into this long answer, as Judy has up on the screen right here. And, Joel basically said look, we kind of catered this team around this dude, right? Everybody on this team can shoot, including me. Right? Like, we all step out the three. We got Seth, we got this guy, we got that guy. So the idea that we didn't do things to cater, I think, is wrong. And we got rid of Jimmy, which I still think was a mistake, just to be sure that Ben had the ball in his hands. And that's a decision they made. And now, you and I both know, Coach, because we talked to enough people around the league and within there. I'm not going to say that is true,
right?
But I'm not going to say it's not true, right? Like,
well, we could take issue with a couple of things with Joel. And the fact that he even is doing this, I mean, to me, be the bigger man and just ignore it. But right now, Ben's in hell. You don't got to join him in hell. When Joel says that the everything is arranged for him, that's not the team that I watch play, Jarod. When I watch the Sixers play, and for years, it's been get the ball inside, get the ball inside, get the ball inside, get them inside, and not the Ben Simmons. It's to Embiid, which is fine. He's amazing. But no one around the league thinks that the Sixers are designed for Ben Simmons in the half court. In the full court, they are, as they should be. I think it's fine. I think they should be designed for Ben Simmons in the full court and Joel in the half court. That, to me, isn't the problem. And they were a 1 seed. And they were the number one seed number combo in the league, plus minus. However, if you really wanted to run an offense best suited for Ben Simmons, you wouldn't have a center. You would want a more open space. Joel Embiid likes to shoot threes. We know that. When he claims that everyone shoots plus me, well, you had your best year last year because you stopped shooting so many threes. You got inside even more where you destroyed everyone, which is great. So I didn't love that part. And then the Jimmy Butler thing, I won't reveal what I know from inside the team. All I'll say is it had nothing to do with Ben Simmons. Nothing to do with Ben Simmons. Why Jimmy Butler is no longer was not in Philadelphia. But I'm happy to say we'll just ask Jimmy first before I would ever opine. So Jimmy Butler sees the press every day. Someone can say to Jimmy, "Is that why you left the Sixers? Because Ben Simmons needed the ball in his hands, the guy that's always one of the league leaders in assists, and doesn't shoot very much, it doesn't make much sense, Joel. Like you can argue plenty of things. That isn't your best argument. And so to me, I think the Sixers executives and coaches weren't thrilled. Like they just needed to die down. Let's just focus on the team we have. I will tell you this, no one is going to be more nervous about preseason and then week 1 and 2 in Philadelphia for the Sixers than the executives and the coaches.
100%.
If they are not the team that they were in the regular season last year,
disaster.
Ben Simmons is lighting that red Auerbach cigar. So I fucking told you, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Rich Paul is right with him. He's the one lighting the cigar for him.
And
they're in trouble.
The big thing too is we always say is right. The Philly can't be worse, right? They have to be at least as good as they were last year, somewhere in that range. The Board of Governors, I believe, either met this week or will meet today. No, those are all the owners of the 30 teams. Henry talks about this all the time. Owners drive a lot of these decisions behind the scenes because they don't want to have to deal with this in front of their peers and what have you. 100% guarantee you that this Ben Simmons situation was, if their meeting already happened, or if it's today, will be discussed what's going on because the owners don't like the fact that someone with 4 years left on their deal is demanding a trade and trying to get out. So how long does Josh Harris want to keep dealing with this before he's like, listen, Daryl, I don't care how cool you are being uncomfortable. I want this soap opera done. Make it happen. Get rid of this guy and let's move on with what we have. And I think it'll be interesting to see if that happens early. They may not get back. I mean, we already know the likelihood of them getting back what they want is probably not going to happen. Sans getting Damian Lillard, which I don't know if that's going to happen, right? Like you're just not going to get back equal value. So this is going to be interesting for Philly. And I can easily see the first 20 games. They go 8-12 or 9-11 and ain't going to be too great. And with Doc and all those guys in Philly, going to be very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah. In improv class, I've never taken improv class, but I have friends who have. You're supposed to always be agreeable. Like you don't want to be belligerent. You want to be agreeable. I find that in podcasting, it's sometimes better to take different points of view. But you always say everything that was so right. I have nothing to argue with. You're exactly right. I do think it's going to come. We've already seen Josh Harris one time melt down and fire Sam Hinkie because his kids were being bullied or whatever his excuse was, which is fine. I think it's the same thing here. I think if this is still the talk of what's going on, and clearly they can't fill the hole that Ben Simmons played, then they're going to have to do something, and they can get something for him. I don't think I tell you this. The only way his value goes up is if the Sixers don't do well. That's why I was suggesting he'll light the cigar and saying, see, motherfuckers, yeah, I may have been bad in that series. I was bad in that series, but it's not like I was bad. I did make third till NBA. We were the first seed, blah, blah, blah. That's what Ben Simmons has to hope for. And I've looked at the roster. It's possible.
I'm going to say, right? It could happen. And God forbid, Embiid gets hurt for any amount of time and disaster. It's just like, it's all over then.
Yeah, I'm glad they have Andre Drummond as the backup, but he's no Joel Embiid.
No, certainly not.
And their point guard right now is the kid in Maxey, who I love, but he's years away from being good.
And Shake Milton off the bench. And
Shake is doing great from my reports. In fact, I read this today. Keith Pompey wrote, he's had a great camp. I had someone tell me that he's been maybe the best player in training camp.
Good.
Which is great news. But he's not a point guard. He's Jordan Clarkson.
Right.
He just wants to shoot that thing. And that'll be fine off the bench. But when you start playing with Embiid, that won't be as fun.
No.
That might start Embiid doing the same thing, which isn't good.
No.
And that's what Ben Simmons is hoping for, I think.
Agreed. All right, Coach, you wrote a great article this week about who you think will be the MVP of the NBA. Should you want to pull that up? So you're like, look, it's one or two people for you. It's either the tall 7-foot sniper in Brooklyn, or it's that large human being superhero down in New Orleans. And those are the guys for you that could be MVP. Talk to us a little bit about what you see as it relates to MVP this year.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, obviously, Luka is a candidate. There's lots of candidates, but I felt like I don't know why I felt this way. It just was coming to me. This was before we heard about his stress fracture. That everyone else, Katie, I'm going to keep him separate. I wrote about this. They all have something that makes me think it won't be their year. Jokic is phenomenal and destroyed the league, but how do you give a guy a second MVP if the team is worse the next year? Steph Curry has 2 already. Giannis has 2 already. And I think they're going to have great years, but are they really going to have MVP level compared to the 2 MVP seasons? And this is not about choosing the best data.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a metric award. It's a sentiment award,
right?
It's why I don't really normally pay attention to it. And I think Zion is going to be an absolute monster season. I think he's going to have an incredible season. I think he's going to average 30-plus points a game. 2 guys averaged over 30 last year, Beal and Curry. And I think the Pelicans, I really think it comes down to, can they win enough games? Westbrook's team was a 6 seed, but he had a triple
doubles. Yep.
Okay. Well, Zion's not going to get that. He might get a double. He could get 10 rebounds. He probably won't. Maybe get 8 or 9, maybe 4 or 5 assists. But 32, 9, and 5.
That's nasty numbers.
Those are 63% shooting. Yeah,
that's an MVP.
Yeah, I mean, you could be right there. And I think the Pelicans, I love they have Trey Murphy is a rookie from Virginia, is very good. Mostly rookies aren't good. I think he's gonna be really good. Maybe not really good this year, but good. I like Devontae Graham. I think he's an underrated player. He's got to replace Lonzo Ball. We'll see. I think Willie Green is going to build an unbelievable culture. I think Stan Van Gundy is a much better basketball coach just because Willie's never done it as a head coach. And I love Stan, but I think he had no culture building at all going on in New Orleans. I think Willie is going to have some things to learn X and O wise, not just X and O wise, but just in terms of organizing his process and how to win games. But I mean, his culture is going to be state of the art. I think he's one of those guys that is just as good as we have at developing culture in a program. That's what I think. And because of that, if they can get to 45 or so wins, which is certainly possible with Zion. And Brandon Ingram is really good. Let's not act like he's not an all-star. Yeah. He is. And Jonas Valanciunas is better than Steven Adams. So that's why I make the argument. The KD one, I have your fucking voice in my head all the time. Who would you take in a pickup game? And I keep thinking, well, first of all, it's not like we're smart. Sports Illustrated pick him number 1 in the league.
ESPN did.
Yep. We all see it. And then this cat's got 1 trophy. He's got 1 MVP award and probably is top 10 all time. We have a lot of them. Like, I don't know where you put Curry in that. There's a lot of guys. I'm not sure Kobe's top 10 all time. I know people think he might be, and his fans love him. But there's a lot of guys. Coach.
A lot of guys.
So, but KD?
That's what I'm saying.
He's got to probably be there. So you can't. So to me, it's a sentiment thing. And so the legacy is, how do we not give this guy a second trophy if he's on the first seed or second seed, which is likely the case. Kyrie or not, they're going to be a top 2 seed. And he's going to put up, 27 and whatever on
50, 40, 90.
50, 45, 90.
Yeah.
Or 50, 45, 88 last year. So, yeah, I think KD is going to be the sentimental choice. And only, if he gets hurt and Zion ends up playing, 70 games and does what he does, I think Luka's going to be right there too. But I think Dallas going to be, I don't love Jason Kidd. I think it's going to be a little disappointing. That's why I went with Zion.
I love that. I think, look, Luka, I don't think he's going to win enough games. So that's why it's got me kind of like, And I was thinking, can Jokic go back to back? But then with Jamal being out and Michael Porter Jr., he's never met a shot he doesn't like. So MPJ might be that team's leading scorer, right? There's so many guys who could potentially have it. I think you're right. The MVP more than anything is a narrative-based award, right? And that's what's been taken over the past, however many years, 25, 30, it's narrative, right? And the fact that he only has 1, and incredible as he is, I think people are going to look back and be like, we gotta rectify that, right? Like, without saying it in their subconscious, we have to rectify this. And the odd thing with KD is he's been this his whole career. It's like he had these weird pockets where it was like people forgot what he was doing, right? He wins the MVP. He gets hurt with the Jones fracture the next year. The game he got hurt, they're playing at Golden State, Curry and that whole squad. So the year that they're going to win the championship, he has 35 at the half. At the half, Oklahoma City's up. The silent reporter is asking Steph, what's going on? Like, why are you guys down? Like, what's happening? Kevin Durant, we got nothing. This guy is unbelievable, right? Jones fracture, we never hear about him again that season. Curry wins the MVP. The next year they win 70 whatever games. They beat Oklahoma's come back from 3-1, and it's like, who's Kevin Durant? He's nobody. And then he goes to the Warriors. People, he's not that good, blah, blah, whatever. I'm like, Did you guys not watch basketball every year prior to that? He played excellent basketball at Golden State, comes off an Achilles, and he's, oh, wait, look at this guy. He's the best player in basketball, right? So I think all of those things, I think, have a good chance for him. It's just about playing enough games. And, he loves to play. I actually asked Steve, I was like, look, these guys have to rest. Steve Nash, I asked him on Monday, how do you get them to rest when science says you got to play less games and they don't want to listen to you? And he's like, I got to fight them sometimes. And it's hard. And ultimately he can't tell Kevin Durant, no, you're not going to play, right? Kevin's like, no, I'm playing. But, that's going to be, I think, the challenge for them, right? Like, what's more important, winning another MVP trophy or getting the big gold trophy? And, so we'll see.
They'll smash enough teams where he'll be able to get his minutes down a little bit, I think. I talked to an NBA coach last night, who was quoting like an all-time NBA coach who they've been spending a lot of time together, about the league in the last 15 years. And I thought about you when they said the comments this coach had. I think this coach, I don't remember when he coached Kevin Durant. It might have been Team USA at some point, but or maybe it's just coaching against him so much. But he said he just loves to play. He really does. There's a love that guy has. That
loves hooping.
Big reason why he's so good.
Yeah, but it's like everything else, right? That you're the gift and the curse, right? Your greatest gift is also your downfall, right? It's like, dude, you got to put the basketball down and just chill out for a little bit. But anyway,
he plays the right way too.
He does. Last thing before we go, we did our top 3 at each position, so it's basically top 15, right? Basically, who's going to be in the mix for All NBA every year? But we said last week, who are the next 5 guys coming up that are behind the scenes that, as these guys age out, are going to take over the league? So I'm going to give you my 5, Coach. You give your 5. I bet they're probably similar. So I have Zion, but I put a star next to his name only because the stress fracture is worrying me, because this is already injury number 3, I think, 2 or 3.
2 for lower body, I think.
Okay, in his first 3 years in the league, and I don't love that.
He hasn't started year 3 yet.
That's right, correct.
Right.
I don't love that, so that makes me nervous. Trae Young, I think he's outstanding. Jason Tatum, I think, is also outstanding.
On my list.
Devin Booker, I think, is also the next guy coming up. Donovan Mitchell, and I know I cheated because I put the star next to Zion, so that's 5. But my 6th is Bam Adebayo. I love what Bam does from a defensive perspective, and I think he can get better offensively. If he can consistently knock down that 15-foot mid-ranger, I mean, he's Kevin Garnett 2.0.
I'll add a few more names just because I added everyone you said. I said Cat.
Yeah. How could I forget
Coffee
Cat?
Towns.
How could I forget Cat?
And DeAndre Ayton. We have to keep track of those 2 guys, right?
Yep.
Your boy.
Oh, I know. I didn't put MPJ. I know.
and Ben Simmons.
Well, yes, of course.
He's not a top 15 player, but if we're talking about as those guys age out, who's taking their spot, I think Ben's got a chance. I've got a surprising name for me. Anyone that's followed me for years, I was never a huge fan. I was a mild fan of Zach LaVine. I said he was Jamal Crawford. What I saw from Zach in Team USA, I love him so much now. I think he's grown a lot as a player. He might just need a better franchise. We'll see how he does this year in Chicago. So Zach, I'm glad you mentioned Donovan. Shea Gilgeous.
Oh,
the team is so terrible.
Jesus.
But I don't know how long he's going to last there before he says, guys, I'm rotting here. To send me somewhere where I can actually play on TV.
By the way, can we talk about the fact that Sam Presti's basically doing what's his face did in Philly? What Sam Hinkie did, except he's not publicizing it. He's doing the same exact thing. He's just not talking about it. Just
They're going to be terrible this year. All right,
horrendous.
So I have 2 more names. John Morant, I know there's a long list of guys. So John Morant, we're going to have to watch him. And then my secret guy.
Ooh.
All right, 2 more. Pascal Siakam and Jaylen Brown.
Okay.
Yep.
Got Jaylen Brown. Yep.
They got a chance. And then my secret guy is Fred VanVleet.
Ooh.
He might be an all NBA player in a couple more years. He just does everything it takes to win games.
He does. He's a winner.
I'm not going to discount that dude.
He's a winner. I like that. Look, Toronto. I think Toronto's going to have a sneaky, interesting year. I kind of want to just see them play a little bit more, right? Like, I want to see more Boucher, more. I mean, OG Anunoby would be so good. Like, I want to see what Nick Nurse does with this squad. Toronto will be interesting to watch this year. Well, folks, you know what time it is. 11:59. Judy's going to come on and say 1 minute to go. So we're going to end perfectly on time here. Yeah. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves this weekend. Friends, families, loved ones. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the fall weather. Basketball will be here. First preseason game on Sunday. Oh, my God.
Coming right up.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.